All right, guys. Today we yet again worked on a Desmos activity. You guys were in here. You did a discussion. You did Desmos. Then you did some check for understanding stuff. So we're going to do these things step by step again. And one thing that I think is really important with these problems is that you go into them and you create a plan before you even start. So I'm going to look over here on the left at my 10 steps that I've given you guys. I know that I'm going to draw my river. I know that I'm going to have to multiply by the denominator. Okay. I don't think there's any distributing. And then I'm just going to, we have discussed in class that we do 6, 7, and 8 at the same time. All right. And then I'm going to divide, and then I'll check my answer. Okay, so that gives me a basic outlook on what I am doing. Okay, so here is what I am doing. So drawing the river, that's going to be something I do on my paper. So I won't necessarily be able to show that on the calculator. But I am going to multiply by the denominator. Some of you guys might have said cross multiply. That's fine too. So this is going to be 15. My red is going to be 15. And this is going to be 2v is equal to 15. So we can do denominator. If you guys would prefer to say cross multiply, you're welcome to do that. And that will leave me with 2v is equal to 15. Now, as I look at this problem, I actually don't have to do 6, 7, and 8. So while I had that idea, I don't even have to do it because there is nothing for me to combine and move. It happens to be on the same side right now. The next thing I'm going to do is divide. So I'll do step 9, which is divide. And I get 5 halves. So on my paper, I would write V equals 5 halves. Now I'm going to check this information. I'm going to simply put my answer in for the problem. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get my Desmos calculator up, and I will drop it in here so that we can see it firsthand. So I'm going to slide this in so that I can see all that information at the same time. So here we go. So I'm going to go back to my original problem, which is 2/5. All right, and when I click that, I get 2/5. And then I'm going to put 3 divided by parentheses 15 halves. And when I do that, you guys will see that I do in fact get a fraction for both problems. All right, I get 2/5. Now I'm going to press enter here, and I'm going to say 2/5 is equal to 2/5. That is my check. That means I'm done. So I can submit that, and I can go to the next problem. So the next problem, again, is a proportions problem. All right, I do these problems a lot with you guys because they tend to be the ones that you all struggle the most with. So I think the more we see them, the less intimidating they'll be. Again, I'm going to build myself a plan. I'm going to draw my river. Because again, just getting started is the hardest part. All right, then I'm again going to have to multiply by the denominator. Okay. Then I am going to have to distribute. All right, if you want to put up here, you cross multiply. That's fine too. I meant to say that when we were doing it. All right, then number 5 will be combining terms. Well, I don't think there's going to be much combining terms just by looking at it. So then I'm going to do 6, 7, and 8 as one step. So I'm going to inverse and combine. and then I'm going to divide by the coefficient. And the last thing I'm going to do is check my problem. Okay? So again, we're just trying to take the intimidation out of the problem before we even start. I just remember when I also did algebra, and I was a pretty good math student, I would sometimes look at problems and say, oh my gosh, there's no way, I don't even know where to begin. This way you do have a place to begin. Even if it is as simple as just drawing a river. Multiply by the denominator. So, or we're going to cross multiply. That's 14. I'm going to put that over here because I know ultimately I want my variable on the left. So I'm going to prepare it in the beginning like that. So it's going to be 5x plus 9. Make sure you're multiplying those. I had a couple students add those today. Make sure you are, in fact, multiplying. I've also had a couple students that have done the distributive property and they've only put the 5 on the x and then they left the 9 by itself. Remember, when you distribute this 5, that's going to make this 5x plus 45 is equal to 14. Okay? So now I've done the distributive property. So I've done 2 of them. So now I'm going to type those things in right into my calculator. So I can't really type number 2 in, but I can say this is going to make 5 times x plus 9 is equal to 14. And I know that writing it on a piece of paper and then having to type the exact same thing, I understand the annoyance on that, but I really just want you guys to know how to do this by hand opposed to doing this by using a calculator or an app or something like that. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract by 45. And so that will leave me with 5x equals. Now, personally, I am not very good at adding and subtracting integers. Okay, and I have no shame in saying that. So I'm going to pop my calculator back up. And I'm going to say 14 minus 45. And that gives me negative 31. All right, so that's going to be negative 31. So when I did my inverse and I combined, that was 6, 7, and 8. I did all of those things at the same time. So that led me to 5x equals negative 31. The final thing I'm going to do is divide, and I can do that visually. And I know that's going to be negative 31 divided by 5. Okay, so sometimes it's hard to know exactly what that is. But when you divide it, you will get, and it looks like my problem has kind of rolled up. There you go. And we're going to divide this by 5, and that's how I get negative 31 fifths. So now we're going to go ahead and check the problem. Now remember, when you check the problem, you're not going to get the answer negative 31 fifths. You're going to see that your equation is balanced on both sides. All right, so now we have 2 divided by negative 31 fifths plus 9. And that's going to give me the fraction 5/7. So what I would like to see is that the other side is 5/7. And if you look at the problem, it is in fact 5/7. So for my check, I would say 5/7 is equal to 5/7. Okay, and I just put that in there to kind of prove that I did in fact check the answer. So now we're going to go ahead and we're just going to do some problems. And my answers are already there. Just because you have answers, though, does not mean that your answer is always perfect. So again, I'm going to build myself a strategy. Maybe I don't write it down necessarily, but I am still going to build this strategy. I know I'm going to draw the river. There are no denominators, and there's nothing to distribute. So I don't have to even do that. There's nothing to combine. So in this problem, I get to do 6, 7, and 8 first, and then divide. Okay? So that's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to put a river here, and then I'm going to do 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to subtract by 2x, and subtract by 4. This goes away, that goes away. This is going to be x equals negative 10. Well, that x is already a single x, so I don't even need to divide by the coefficient, but I do need to check my answer. So sometimes I put in here things that I need to do, and I don't always even have to do them, but knowing the things I need to do is important. So I'm going to go back to this original problem and say x times negative 10 plus 4 is negative 26, and 2 times negative 10 minus 6 is also negative 26, so I know that answer to be right. So now I'm going to go to the next problem. All right, so my next problem, I'm going to have to use a different strategy. It's not always going to be the same strategy. It's kind of like playing a game. You know, you don't have the same strategy every time. All right, so I'm going to draw a river, but then this time I am going to have to multiply by the denominator, and I'm going to have to distribute, and then I'll have to do 6, 7, and 8 and divide by the coefficient. Okay, so first things first is I'm going to draw the river. Now I am going to multiply, and it doesn't really matter what side you put this stuff on, but I know that I can make a 9n over here, and I know ultimately I want the numbers on the right, so I can set up the problem from the beginning to do that. You can. Now, if you have this opposite, you can still get the same answer. It's just I'm kind of saving myself a step. I'm now going to distribute, and that's going to give me 35n minus 49, and this is 9n. Now, I've got to subtract 35n to the other side. So technically, I didn't have to do both 6 and 7. The only one I'm actually having to do is 6. 7 is not something I have to do because I know this side is already 49. Again, my strength is not in adding and subtracting integers. All right, so I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say 9 minus 35, and that gives me negative 26. So this right here will be negative 26 n, and now I am going to do the ninth step, which is divide. So n equals 49/26. Okay? Now, that looks to be that answer right there. But again, hardest thing in the world to get you guys to do, but the smartest thing in the world for you to do is for you guys to go ahead and check this. So again, I'm going to go up to the original problem. I'm going to say parentheses 5 times 49/26 minus 7 divided by 9. Okay, that's 7/26. So let's see how that works. So we're going to have 7 times 5 times 49/26 minus 7. Also, in fact, what did I do wrong here? So 7 times 5. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what I did? I used where I cross multiplied. Okay, so I've really got to go to the original problem. So it's going to be 49/26 divided by 7. And that does, in fact, give me 7/26. All right, now again, 7/26 isn't the answer. 7/26 is checking to make sure both sides are balanced. Okay? So, let's go ahead and go to the next problem. Number 5. Number 5 shouldn't be a terribly hard problem. We're going to start at the drawing the river. I don't believe there's any multiplying by the denominator or the distributing property, but I do need to combine like terms. All right, I need to combine like terms, and then I will do my steps 6, 7, and 8, and I will divide by the coefficient. Okay? So I'm going to draw my river. And I have 6 and negative 8. So that's negative 2y minus 14 is equal to 4. Okay? So 6 minus 8y is negative 2y, and then the middle is negative 14. I'm now going to add the 14 off. So in this one, I don't have to do 6, but I do have to do 7. But remember, depending on how you set this problem up, might mean you're doing things a little bit differently. And now I'm going to divide by the coefficient, which is negative 2, and y equals negative 9. Okay? Now, we are going to go back into this. So we believe the answer is this, and it probably is. Like, if you guys are getting an answer, the problem is I have a positive and a negative, and a lot of times I mess up my positives and negatives. So if you guys actually watch my videos regularly, you'll see that occasionally I do, in fact, get these answers mixed up. And that does, in fact, equal 4. So I just put it into the original problem, and I got the answer is 4. So both sides of my equation are balanced. I know I have the right answer. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next problem. All right, so again, we're going to have a new strategy. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to look at what these strategies are. I know I always have to draw my river. All right, so now the second thing is multiply by the denominator. I don't need to do that, but I am going to have to distribute and combine here. I can look at it and know I'm going to distribute and combine. And then likely I'm going to have to do something in there, and then I'll divide by the coefficient. Okay, so let's start with that as our strategy, and we will go into this problem now. So we're going to go in here. We're going to do 4 times 4m and 4 times negative 3. So it's going to be 16m minus 2. So now we are going to have a negative 1. This is implied to be a 1. It's going to be negative 1m plus 5 equals negative 52. All right, so if you look at this, you will the most common error would be that negative multiplying in that negative 1. So we have 16m minus m, that's going to be 15m. And then you have negative 12 plus 5 is negative 7 is equal to negative 52. Now, if you guys need a calculator for that stuff, that's fine. There's no shame in that game. Go ahead and use it. Now, we're only having to do number 7. So while I did circle 6, we currently are only having to do 7. So that's going to be 15m is equal to negative 45. All right? We combined our like terms. Now we're dividing by the coefficient, which is 15. And m equals negative 3. All right? And so I believe that to be the answer. Let's go into here and see how we did. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my calculator. And if you guys notice, this is something I'm doing every single time because I dislike it when I accidentally make a negative mixed up and then I get the wrong answer. And then I get picked on by the math department because I'm a math teacher and I made a mistake. All right, so this is going to be negative 3 minus 5. And that is, in fact, negative 52. So that is the correct answer. All right, and the last problem I'm going to do with you guys is number 7. Number 7 is kind of a problem that we often could get wrong because there's a lot going on here. Now, the thing that I've told you guys to do in this problem is to multiply by the denominator. This is kind of an exception here. And this is why making a list is sometimes not always the best way to do things. Now, normally I would say I'm going to draw my river and then I'm going to multiply the denominator out. But if you guys see, I really need to distribute first. So I'm actually going to have to do 4, and then I will do 5, 6, 7, and 8, and end it with 9. All right? So I know what we would like to do is get rid of that 3, but if I distribute, I believe that 3 will go away anyways. So this is going to be negative 4x minus 20. And even if it didn't go away, it's much easier to work with it once the numbers have been multiplied through. You really need to do kind of like you did in 6th and 7th and 8th grade when you did Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally. You really need to multiply these things through first. You need to get rid of those parentheses. So you have 5/3, and that's going to be times 3. All right, so that makes 5. And then if I had 5/3 and I multiplied it by negative 12, that gives me negative 20. So it actually does eliminate itself. So I'm going to have 5 and negative 20, so 5x minus 20. All right, so that is one way to get rid of it. We kind of got lucky that it went away that way. So now let's go ahead and finish this problem. So then we're going to do 6, 7, and 8. And this time we have to do 6, 7, and 8. So we're going to subtract the 5x from one side to the other. And we are going to add the 20 from one side to the other. And that's going to give me negative 9x is equal to 0. Well, this is a bit of an exception right there. Not really an exception, but it is something that might trip us up. This gives us a constant of 0. So if I divide negative 9 by 0, my answer is actually 0. A lot of us like to say no solution here because we know that when we divide in no solutions, or even infinite, because when we divide everything at 0 equals 0. This is not a 0 equals 0 occasion, though. This is an x equals 0 occasion. And therefore, there is, in fact, an answer. So let me show you that two different ways. The first way I'll do it is the way that we've been doing. So it would be negative 4 times 0 plus 5. So I'm putting that 0 in there. And then this would be 5/3. 5/3 multiplied by 3 times 0 minus 12 is negative 20. So I see that these are the same. But however, if I were to also put this in, but instead of putting in zeros, I put in x's right here, you're going to see that this becomes a line. All right? And this line happens to cross at 0, negative 20. And that's why this x is 0. It is not an infinite, or an infinite line would mean they're the same and they're going over top one another. And a no solution would be that they're parallel, and they certainly are not. They do have a point where they cross. So hopefully that helps you guys. That's been about your 25-minute lesson for today. If you need any additional help, please let me know and we can schedule a tutoring time. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to seeing you later this week.